The Building Brands podcast is dedicated to exploring the journeys of industry leaders who have successfully built a brand. Join me, Robert Royer, president of Building Brands Marketing, and an entrepreneur who has successfully scaled multiple brands as we dive deep into the strategies, challenges, and insights that have shaped the success of industry leaders and provide you with the resources you need to do the same. Building Brands Marketing is a full-service marketing agency specializing in crafting customized marketing strategies for service-based businesses with a creative powerhouse to drive real results. Welcome to the Building Brands Podcast. Welcome to the Legal Leader Series of the Building Brands Podcast. Today, we welcome Anuj Gupta, owner and attorney with WADR Law. Welcome, Anuj.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just start with a simple, easy question to introduce you to our listeners and viewers. What sparked your decision to build WADR Law and, create a fully remote law firm?
Yeah, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. So it was at some point I knew I was going to start my own business. And, having gone through law school, having worked in-house at a number of different companies, particularly having worked at startups, I had this itch during COVID to start my own firm. And it seemed like the right time. Things, and everyone's personal life were a little bit all over the place with everything happening in the world. And I was itching to try something new and really make sure that I kind of put myself forward. So that's why I started. I didn't at first want it to be fully remote, but obviously during that time, during COVID, given everything that was happening, it made obviously the most sense. And then, moving forward, I was able to kind of figure out that remote, with a remote law firm, I was able to find the best talent all over the country and also reduce my hourly rate for clients because I didn't have an office or a lease that I had to kind of account for in my budget. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Worked out really well.
Yeah, you're able to pass on some of those savings a little bit.
Exactly.
That's very cool. Can you remind me, when did you found the firm again?
So we've had different iterations of the firm. So prior to starting this firm, I had another firm called First Gen Law. And then last year we had a bit of a restructuring process. So officially WADR Law has started last year. But prior to that, I had started my own law firm 2022.
Very cool. So what are you doing right now for, client acquisition strategies in terms of marketing?
So right now, a lot of it is referral based. So, I've always found that to be a bit of a struggle for me as a business. We don't work in the space. We don't work in like personal injury or an area that you will typically see advertisements on billboards or whatever. So because we work in a very transactional space, a lot of the clients that I do get are through referrals or through client work and clients that enjoy working with us, and they'll pass on our information. We have been trying to set up more events and set up dinners and put ourselves out there, but we don't have a specific strategy just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times with those referral pipelines, there's so much involved with the trust and consideration phase that those dinners, those different events can be the most critical marketing piece anyway, because it really takes more of those leads and turns them into acquisitions through that trust building process of establishing that confidence in, your knowledge and your firm's knowledge and, the experts that you bring to the table and the specialists you bring to the table. So talk to our listeners a little bit more about the type of law that you practice so they could better understand some of those specializations.
Yeah, and just to respond really quickly to your comment, I think a lot of what we do is trust building and relationship building, and a lot of that does come through our dinners, through just getting to know someone in a more personal way, right? Clients want to be able to talk to their lawyers openly, and by building trust through these dinners or just through phone calls or through referrals, we're able to do that a little bit more easily, I would say. So even our intake process is very probably atypical. I don't have any, just a paralegal or an intake coordinator. I get on my intake calls because I want the client to know that they can always reach out to me. So that's always, that's been really important to me as I build my law firm. The type of clients we work with are primarily small businesses and startups. We also have a pretty fun practice in the digital media space. So we work with a lot of ad tech companies, marketing companies. We work with a lot of content creators and influencers, and then marketing agencies, and then production companies as well. Outside of that, on the small business side, we work with a number of different small businesses, and the type of matters they come with range as well. We assist clients with starting up and incorporating their business, to trademarks, to reviewing their employment agreements and NDAs and vendor contracts. But our bread and butter are small businesses and startups that we like to assist.
So, what do you think, what's a good illustration of a recent win that you've had for one of your clients that really guided them from, that first raise or that very, startup phase through acquisition?
Yeah, we work with a lot of clients that are looking to raise capital, and sometimes there's a number of different matters I can point to, but generally speaking, a client will come to us and say, "Hey, we got an investment opportunity. How do we take on the investment?" And unfortunately, I wish I could say it's as just as easy as you know putting the money in your business bank account. It's not, right? Because that investor will want to make sure that you've done your corporate documents appropriately, and they have some sort of written document that if they put in $500,000 in your business or $50,000, that they will now have a portion of your business, or an equity holding in your business. So a lot of what we do is assist our clients and, in the most layman terms possible, describe what that process looks like and then execute on that, right? And for a lot of small businesses, this might be the first time they're drafting an operating agreement or looking at their bylaws. So my job is never to make it overly complicated. I want them to know that there's a reason us lawyers are out there to explain that process for them and to try to make it as simple as possible. So in terms of recent wins, we've helped a number of companies recently bring on investments, small checks and large checks as well, and also explain the process. And we can go into more detail on exactly the legal side, but there's a difference in raising money for an LLC and for a corporation. And if you have unit holders versus equity holders or shareholders, so the nuances there can get very nuanced. But overall, we've been very successful in helping clients raise capital from various investors.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I love, some of what you've been able to really create in a short time frame, relatively, since you've relaunched the firm under this brand. So you've had a really strong referral network, and I know that's drove you probably in large part since day one. Where do you feel that the firm is still somewhat unseen or, unrecognized in terms of, different channels that you feel that
Yeah.
capture the founders that you're looking to serve?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, again, we've been flying under the radar for a long time, and a lot of the relationships have been built off of personal relationships that then have matured, and those folks have, you know, referred their friends or people they know their network. Um, we'd like to get better on some of the more public platforms such as LinkedIn, and then also have some sort of presence probably on Facebook and Instagram. Those are probably not funnels for us to find business per se, but having
Yeah.
a presence there so people know of us is probably important there. We've also heard recently that X is a really great platform to be able to market yourselves. We have not done any marketing there just yet. And then, I think we'd love to be able to also get into the newsletter game, having a Substack. So being able to talk about the wins and different kind of new laws or new changing regulations that are coming up is something we'd like to do as we create and cultivate a community for our clients. And on top of that, having a more suited and developed website, all things that are very important to us. But as we grow, obviously clients come first. So
Yeah.
things that we're taking in stride and trying to do it as slowly and meaningfully as possible.
Yeah, if one obstacle was to disappear right now in terms of your something that's a challenge standing in the way of the firm's growth, what would it be?
Oh, um, someone who understands legal marketing. Um, this is the first time I've built my own law firm, right? So I'm still trying to figure that out as well. And knock on wood, we've been doing it pretty well. But if
Yeah.
that obstacle about kind of learning that process, someone was there that was able to kind of do that and handle that part of the sales strategy or sales funnel, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a that's
A monumental
definitely
investment.
the yeah, it's a big component that's part of it. I mean, it's awesome to be at the point, a year in where you haven't really had to think about that yet because you've had a loyal client base that's really,
Yeah.
brought in more referrals and more referrals. And that's attributable to your quality of work that you're
Hmm.
providing. And you're in a niche that you've obviously built a strong brand reputation for your personal brand in. So inevitably that's allowing your corporate brand to really take off right from the jump without putting a lot of, intention into that component. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
but I
that's
think
a,
as a business owner, I have to, and sorry to cut you off, but as something that's important that I have to recognize is at one point you do want to be able to step out of the sales channel to some extent and being,
yeah,
still receive those inbounds. And we're not there yet, and that's something that is a big area that I'd love to tackle and really approach, in the next 2 quarters, and really try to
yeah.
figure out what that overall strategy would look like.
Well, one of the great things of a firm in your stage, and also like with you working in that intake role right now, and that first point of contact role, is you're establishing all the conversations and the connections to start to build the process. And that's the most important thing I always talk to not just law firms, but service-based business owners about is there's nothing wrong with being at line like that, provided that you're observing, you're making notes, and you're taking this experience and building processes for scalability later on to then move this on to someone else. In your case, because you've been working in that intake role, you now know what are the right questions
Yeah.
that we need to ask in order to pre-qualify people so we don't spin our wheels on clients that aren't qualified for us, as well as vice versa. We find the ones that maybe we're not the right fit for and we need to bring them out to a partner. You're building that whole process that you can then pass on to someone else and delegate because you've experienced it firsthand, right?
I agree 100%. And even on top of that, I think one thing that we've been trying to do a better job at is having a better kind of CRM tool to capture all that data, right? Because they may not be the right fit. A client may not be the right fit right now, but they might be in the future. And being able to
Mm-hmm.
collect that data and be able to remember to, follow up with them in another couple months or 6 months is, really helpful, and something that we're going to be taking more. It's an important part of what we're looking to do. And I've noticed that already, right? There's been clients that we have not closed on, but in 6 months, I followed up with some of them, and they're like, "Hey, we're ready now to proceed with a lawyer." So,
Yeah.
it was so important. So we've been trying to do that more now as well. And we're working, with our tools right now. We work on my case, which has been great, and it has been able to allow us to do things a little bit more easily and capture all that data as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love what you said there because your firm is a total different law firm from say like a PI firm,
Yeah,
right? Someone gets injured, they call it's a very simple consumer journey. In your case, you're planting a lot of seeds where they may not be ready for your firm's or not need your firm's services right now. And then 6 months, a year down the road, things have scaled. They're starting to build their own systems. Now they're in more need. So it's more of a growth journey together. So it requires that need for lead nurturing throughout that sequence of continuing to kind of touch them with certain points of contact so you're still top of mind and you've established enough trust and consideration in that consumer journey for when they're ready.
yeah.
You're the first one that comes to mind. Out of curiosity, you've been exploring some CRM tools. Are there any that are worth mentioning that you felt like could potentially solve some solutions down the road there?
Yeah, I think right now we've tried to keep it as simple, because I think one other thing to recognize for a small business and a small law firm is uh, there's a lot of vendors and softwares out there that will say they can help, and they probably can, but it can become very costly as well. So we're trying to kind of unify everything, keep things as simple as possible. So right now we've been only using MyCase, which has been great in terms of collecting that data. And we have a whole process internally that we have that moves from a call to an engagement letter to the whole process, and then we can kind of track all of that. So that's really the big one at the moment that we have been really enjoying, because of its simplicity, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that there's also something to be said for not like over techy not over technolized, not creating too much tech right at the jump just because it's out there and it's available.
Yeah,
Simple solutions step by step.
I agree. I 100% agree. I think even, you know, when an initial prospective client even messages us, I'm usually the first point of contact to say, welcome them. And then also I have another human assistant who then messages them to say, hey, let's schedule a call. I know there's a lot of tech out there that can do that with, you can send a link and then they can find time to chat. I've hesitated using any of that because I really think the legal relationship is very, it's supported by humans, and a human needs to be there to kind of take care of an individual who is working with a lawyer and going through that legal process. Working with legal sometimes is not fun, but we're trying to make that
Hmm.
as simple and as friendly as possible. And I think that's where humans are so important. I can certainly add a lot of technology, but I don't think it's the right place and time to add that technology.
Absolutely. Congrats. You've had some good success in a short time frame thus far since launching the firm, and I know that it sounds like you're building a strong brand reputation, just making it stronger and stronger day by day. Where can our listeners and viewers learn more about water law online?
Yeah, a couple places, I'd also like to say, a lot of people ask me what does water mean, right? You'll mostly see law firms with their last name, and as I was building this firm, talking to my other associates and lawyers on my team, we wanted to bring in a bit more of a collaborative approach to even building our firm name. And one thing I thought, what we're really good at is when you're negotiating and talking, or you have an argument with the other side sometimes, um, a fun way to kind of respond in a very tactful legal way is with all due respect, and that's what
Hmm.
WADR stands for, with all due respect. So we like to say that as a firm we always lead with respect, and it's always held on, and a lot of our clients appreciate the way that we negotiate because we always are kind of intuitive in that way, really thinking through on how to close a deal, which I think is a very important kind of negotiation strategy. In order for us to, if anyone wants to reach out, we are, of course, always you can visit us on our website, wadr.law.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, or my email is anuj, ANUJ, @waterlaw.com.
Thanks, Anuj. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about the acronym because I meant to ask you about that,
Yeah,
where it came from. I like that. That's a cool brand story to how the name came to fruition. Well,
yeah.
thanks for being on the show. This has been a pleasure and a privilege, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks, Anish.
Thanks so much for having me.